Hi guys, welcome back. This sales video is going to focus very heavily on games that you can play while stuck indoors for a very long time. I'm not really sure why, it was just an idea that came to me. So yeah, let's do that. A big thanks to all of you who support us here on the channel and leave nice comments down below. It's very good. We enjoy it a lot. With that being said, let's get into the list. First up, one of my favourite games of all time is the wonderful Final Fantasy VII. Now, with it about to be re-released on the PS4, they've slashed the price on many of their Square Enix titles, and the original Final Fantasy VII is no exception. This sale goes on until the 30th. If you're unsure about the story, then what the hell have you been doing? But if, like me, you're stuck indoors for a bit, then I would highly recommend going back to the original and just playing through. For the music alone, this is an experience well worth it. It's a turn-based JRPG set in and around the city of Midgar when things begin to go seriously wrong. You play as a quite moody soldier whose name's Cloud, but well, in my game he was never called Cloud because I changed it to Mark. But yeah, you get the picture. There's a great cast of characters, a lovely atmosphere runs through the whole experience, and yes, it gets a bit grindy, and no, it's not the longest JRPG ever, but I would highly recommend picking this one up. Next up then, we've got Octopath Traveler. Now this sale is a massive 50% off as well, and it goes on until April, so you've got a good chunk of time to pick it up. It follows the stories of 8 different heroes, and you can play them in an order that you choose. If you're unaware, it's from the producers of Bravely Default, and that HD 2D art style that they went for has become much loved. If Animal Crossing hasn't eaten your time already, and well, it really probably should, then this is another game that you're going to spend a great deal of time playing. Still on sale for another few days then, well, about 6 days, we've got Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate from Capcom. Now, we're always banging on about this game, aren't we? But there's a good reason. And let's be honest, there's still probably a good chunk of you who've never played the series at all. I've put in around about 800 hours maybe now in total throughout the Monster Hunter 4 and then the Japanese version of this and now this game, which actually for the series isn't really a great deal. There are people out there that put 10,000 hours in. You'll essentially be going on missions with a group of friends, usually online, to take down gigantic behemoths. Hey, I finally said behemoth right. Things are looking up. There are 14 different weapon types, and every single one of those changes the way that you play the game. They're incredibly deep and complex games, and don't believe anyone that just says they are shallow hack and slashes, because that's not what they are at all. Breaking off different body parts with certain weapon types, using blunt damage to smash horns, or getting your bow skills up and just shooting something in the face and watching it stagger as your friend mounts it and stabs it in the head. There's nothing quite like it. You've not got quite so long for this next one, and it's The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus. This is an unbelievably time sink game. You can play locally with a co-op friend, or you can spend the time playing on your own. Now, things to know about it: there are daily runs so that you can go and do these daily challenges to try and earn extra points, etc. You unlock a host of new characters. In fact, I spent most of my time, I think, playing as Magdalene because she has a healing ability from the start, which makes it a touch easier. But other than that, there's not a lot to say that's easy about this game. It's brutally difficult. It's very funny, and Edmund, the guy that made this, is always on Twitter posting and answering questions and just seems like a decent guy. Now, this list is well and truly getting overrun by Square Enix. All of their titles are essentially 50% off, so basically you can't go too far wrong with any of them. But it would be remiss of me not to mention Final Fantasy X and X-2, the HD remaster. They offer a ludicrous amount of gameplay between the two of them. I can't exactly remember, was it something like 200 or 300 hours in total? The first tells the story of a star blitzball player, which was the sport they invented for the game. And you play as Tidus, who joins up with a summoner named Yuna on a quest to save the world from Spira. Now in the second one, X2 or 10-2, you return to that world 2 years after the beginning of the Eternal Calm, and you're not going to understand what I'm talking about until you actually play the game. It's a lovely game with a beautiful world, and at half price, it's going to give you some serious value. Next up then, and this one snuck into the list, it's not the longest game in the world ever. In fact, it's 2 games. It's the Bleed Complete bundle from Digerati. Now, I loved both of these titles. They're great, really enjoyable. You can also do 2-player co-op with them. It's 85% off, which is absolutely ludicrous. Takes it down to around about $4, which is, well, that's just mad really. They're very fun, really slick, very quick. Like I say, they're not the longest games in the world. That's the only real negative, because it doesn't fit my list criteria at all, but I don't care. You should buy them. Very good games. Then we've got my pickup for this list, and it's Risk of Rain 2 from Gearbox Publishing. You might remember Glen banging on about how good these were a couple of weeks back, and then in the comments subsequently someone said, oh, 2 is amazing, and well, you sold it to me, essentially. This is 50% off, taking it down to $14.99, which is unreal. Now this sale also goes on till the 4th of April, so you've got a good amount of time to pick it up. It takes the classic formula that we saw in the first title and it puts it into a 3-dimensional environment. You fight alongside a group of other people, online if you so choose, against random enemies, bosses. There are items here. It is important to remember you can do it solo, but there are tons of multiplayer updates and free updates for the game that are coming all the time, which is really impressive. For this price, yes please, it's my pick of the week. Okay, another game that's not necessarily the longest ever, but it offers brilliant escapism. If you remember, well, of course you remember, Shenmue, this game is very similar. I can't quite put my finger on what it is, whether it's the day-to-day activities that you have to carry out, but it has a real style to it as well. It's an open world beat 'em up, and you'll go around meeting new characters. You can explore this town that you start in. The main character's a gang leader, but he's also a senior in high school. Things like making money, staying fed, studying for school, going to a bar, cafe or restaurant, which is now the only place you can do that, or play the numerous mini games. There's tons that you can do here. Well worth picking up, and the sale goes on till April, so you've got a good bit of time. I'm really glad I finally get to mention this next game. It's another one from Circle Entertainment. These guys have some really brilliant titles that kind of go overlooked, or they just have slightly strange release times. It's called Shadows of Adam, and it describes itself as a retro RPG designed for the modern era, and it is a JRPG. Tucked away from the outside world by the impenetrable haze of the misty woods, the village of Adam has mostly lived in peace since the days of the Wraith War. The dark power that fueled that war has vanished, but darkness is descending once again. Man, sounds very original. But what I will say is the writing's great in this. A little bit self-referential at times, but very comical for the most part. It is obviously inspired by classic 90s JRPGs, but it does it really well. It doesn't feel old, it feels very fresh. Last but certainly not least then, we have Glen's choice, which is Yesterday Origins from Microids. As you know, I absolutely love an adventure title, and he said this was a great one. It's set in 1481, where a young John is publicly humiliated and dragged through the street under suspicion of witchcraft. He's imprisoned by the Spanish Inquisition to be tortured. Man, no one expects that. Later he undergoes an alchemical transformation, making him immortal, but not everything goes as planned, and as a result, after each resurrection, John completely forgets who he is. And you also play 500 years later. Sounds really interesting this. It's got a lovely art style, there's tons of content, and yeah, this is going to be one I pick up myself. So there we have it for this list. If, like me, you're stuck indoors for a bit longer, then these are certainly going to be time sink games, but it's a rewarding sink of that time. A big thanks to our patrons who support us each and every month, and we do thank all of you who put up with ads in videos and things like that, because it's essentially our income and our livelihood, and you are supporting us. So for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!